Treading water in the great outdoors not only makes you healthy, it also makes you curious. These men are on the trail of the secrets of water. Using a new measuring technique, they are trying to discover the self-healing powers of mountain streams. The measurement is intended to help improve the quality of our drinking water. Visionaries? They are certainly not scientists, but practitioners who are immersing themselves in the phenomena of water. Anyone who wants to improve the quality of our drinking water must first understand what this basic substance consists of, because nowhere in nature is there pure H2O. Water is a unique solvent that almost greedily absorbs all substances it comes into contact with. With infinite patience, water dissolves mountains of limestone or even granite, a phenomenon. Depending on the original rock, the aqueous solution has a different quality. And the head of river engineering, Ottmar Grober, wants to take advantage of this. He wants to make the rivers of Styria as healthy and clean as natural mountain streams. The quality of water can be measured, but its vitality cannot. Grober can only observe it. One water flows noticeably faster downstream. The others linger a little. The other swings back and forth more. And so we always have to differentiate between one water and the other. If you look closely into the water, you can also see how different these waters are, and you can also see exactly how far humans have already approached the water, with their influences and needs.
Wie weit sich der Mensch dem Wasser schon genähert hat mit seinen Einflüssen und Bedürfnissen.
These needs endanger our drinking water worldwide. Mechanical agitation is not enough to purify contaminated water. Chemicals are added. Pumps force clean water in the pipes. Contrary to its natural will to flow, it is forced into straight pipes before it runs out of the tap. This is why there are numerous water revitalization devices that work physically rather than chemically. The manufacturers claim to make tap water similar to spring water again. Many imitate the natural turbulence of the water. 100 years ago, the Austrian naturalist Victor Schauberger recognized the fundamental principle of water revitalization. In the vortex, a phenomenon, first of all, it has the property of sucking dirt particles out of the water. In addition, a vortex can precipitate dissolved substances such as lime from the water. This ability to purify itself has hardly been used to date. Here, a spiral turns the water. Schauberger described spiral vortices as the energy program of nature. This is because spirals are found both in the universe and in the genetic material. There are now several hundred suppliers of water revitalization devices. Many of them claim to energize the water. To do this, they transmit vibrations and information. How they do this is often remains their secret. At the same time, many manufacturers refer to Victor Schauberger, but his findings are increasingly being watered down. Walter Thut makes no secrets about his technology. The Swiss engineer was a manager in the Swiss concrete industry and has been building water revitalization systems since 1996. They consist of two elements. The first is a swirler, which swirls the water in a Schauberger-like manner, and the second is a new technology. A copper wire is wound around the water pipe, and this copper coil transmits electromagnetic vibrations into the water flowing through it. One such system is installed at a vegetable farmer in the Rhone Valley in Switzerland. Here, 6 copper coils and an electronic system transmit the vibrations into the water. This allows up to 360 liters of electromagnetically stimulated water per minute to reach the greenhouses. Since the vegetable farmer has been irrigating lettuce, zucchinis, cucumbers, and tomatoes in this way, his crop yield has increased significantly.
Ce que j'ai précisément remarqué, c'est qu'il y a une augmentation de la surface radiculaire.
Basically, it is noticeable that the root system has become larger and the absorption of nutrients and water has improved.
Où il y a eu un gain
This means that the plants develop better and grow faster. A time gain of 7 to 10 days. This means saving on heating in spring and, above all, faster replanting of tomatoes compared to last year.
plus rapide que les années précédentes.
What works in the greenhouse is now also being tested in nature. Lac Moubra in the Swiss municipality of Montana, the lake in the canton of Valais suffers from inflows that cause an unnatural growth of algae. For years, the problem was combated with chemicals. However, this conventional method did not have the desired effect. The municipality therefore commissioned Thut to clean up the lake with his water revitalization system. This works physically by transmitting electromagnetic vibrations into the water. And which frequencies are used for this stimulation? Walter Thut is a musician and plays several instruments, and here a synthesizer. The scale with these harmonic sounds and vibrations is the basis for his theory of natural water revitalization.
In nature, every substance has its own vibration, and this vibration is very, very fine and subtle, and of course we cannot hear this vibration. And in quantum physics, there are formulas that enable us to calculate these vibrations very precisely. And I could then transfer this back to the piano analogously. If we now calculate the sound of oxygen, for example, this is of course much higher and it is not audible, so the piano would be about half a kilometer long. But if I transpose it back down into the octaves and I'm back in the audible range, then I end up with this sound of oxygen. And carbon, a very important substance in plants, in people, everywhere, is exactly a fifth above that. You could call it a fifth leap. And if I now make another leap of a fifth, I end up here at a tone, and that is exactly the tone of water.
Of course, Thut does not play piano notes in the water, but stimulates it with frequencies. These can even be made visible in a small container of water. Oxygen, carbon, and this is what water looks like when it is stimulated with its natural frequency. Lac Moubra is a very large body of water. To stimulate 160,000 cubic meters of water, Thut and the municipality's chief technician had to come up with something special. A 400-meter long wire laid at the bottom of the lake emits the electromagnetic vibrations into the water. The intensity is very low, requiring only 2 watts of direct current. The wire cannot be seen from the outside and is not dangerous for bathers. Good to know for the mayor because the lake is important for tourism in Montana.
Donc on peut déjà constater qu'au niveau de la prolifération.
You can already see a reduction in the proliferation of algae. The algae are no longer as strong and green as they used to be. We can also see that the depth of visibility has improved. We will definitely continue with this experiment, which uses no chemicals and is healthy for nature, flora, and fauna.
Vraiment une expérience qui est saine au niveau de la nature, de la flore et de la faune.
The environment of the lake has apparently improved as a result of the permanent introduction of the frequency of oxygen. In the water molecule, oxygen and hydrogen are dipoles that attract each other and form so-called hydrogen bonds. This creates whole clusters of connected water molecules. Such a cluster is shown here in a simplified spherical form. However, these clusters can form many geometric shapes. When a foreign substance enters the water, the molecules, or rather, these clusters, wrap themselves around it. They envelop it. The Italian atomic physicist Emilio del Guidice has extended this basic model.
Mentre nel solido gli atomi
Whereas in solid substances, the atoms are in fixed positions. In liquids, this structure has a rhythmic form, as in a dance. This means that the arrangement in a liquid is not spatial, as here, but temporal. All molecules move in the same rhythm. An image for this is the dance. This means that the water molecules are in a spatial disordered distribution. But their electrons all vibrate to the same rhythm.
oscillano, i loro elettroni oscillano tutti con lo stesso ritmo.
If you play music into a small container of water, the water starts to dance, a phenomenon. Water molecules can also be compared to dancing couples. There is no formation dancing on the floor. It's quite wildly mixed up, but all couples obey the same rhythm. So much for the theory. In 1998, the now deceased scientist Jacques Benveniste claimed to have proven the effectiveness of a homeopathic serum. Benveniste lost his office soon afterwards. The affair surrounding the memory of water became a scandal and became known far beyond France.
È stato un esempio di intolleranza.
This is an example of scientific intolerance. Although the majority of scientists called the claims about the memory of water a fraud, I believe that water can have a memory over a long period of time. The duration may be months, if not years, according to conservative estimates.
Cautelativamente almeno in mesi, se non in anni.
The National Research Center in Padua is one of the few institutes in the world that deals with water phenomena. The Italians want to know whether the oxidation of metal in the water can be influenced. The researchers stimulate the water with a coil that emits electromagnetic oscillations. In contrast to the practitioner Thut, the scientists are working with inaudible frequencies in the kilohertz range. The first tests indicate an effect.
Naturalmente l'esperimento non è.
These are the first indications we have received, but you have to wait a long time because the lifetime of these simulated states of water is very long, months. This makes the experiment time-consuming.
Dell'acqua l'esperimento dura a lungo.
It is not only the oxidation processes that can be stimulated with treated water. The Russian expert Valentin Sapunov was contracted by the Austrian Research Center, Seibersdorf, near Vienna, because the importance of modern water research was also recognized there. Sapunov was initially able to demonstrate the treatment of water using spectral analysis. In ultraviolet light, swirled water shows a different permeability.
Wir haben verschiedene Versuche gemacht, die
We have done various experiments to determine the activated water, treated water, and it is known that the activity of water is normally determined by the different biological processes. And for example, we have chosen the fermentation process with yeast and have found that treated water can accelerate this process.
und haben festgestellt, dass behandeltes Wasser kann diesen Prozess beschleunigen.
A dry drop from the Dusseldorf water pipe looks like this, and like this when this water has been swirled. An evaporating drop of water leaves a unique image of its dissolved substances under the microscope. Stuttgart artist Hufbubler discovered these phenomena 15 years ago. This gave many people an insight into what they otherwise call lime stains. Today, several water researchers are working with this method, including an employee of Walter Thut. The Swiss developer is one of the few manufacturers of water revitalization devices that are also able to diagnose water quality and its changes.
These images under a microscope may not be sufficiently reproducible for a scientist, but for us, they are very good reference points, as we always can obtain similar images for similar problems. And that is important for us in practice, so we know in which direction we need to work. And this picture here is a typical picture of a mountain stream. What we see here is that the lime is carried far inwards, these white dots. This shows that the water is very strong. If we now have a tap water that is under pressure for several kilometers, then this water becomes lame, and it shows a picture like this. We see here that the lime is deposited immediately at the border, and it's not carried far inwards. If we now activate this water, this tap water here, again electromagnetically with harmonic frequencies, then again we have an image that is very similar to the mountain stream from before.
Ottmar Grober has built a small pendulum ramp in front of this outlet of a wastewater treatment plant to revitalize the chemically treated wastewater. A good opportunity to collect new data. Walter Thut has now also entered the field of wastewater treatment with his system. He wants to physically precipitate problematic substances so that they do not end up in the rivers. Thut has calculated a natural vibration for nitrate that is non-harmonic.
Nitrate, I can't play it here on the piano because it is somewhere between the keys in its natural vibration. And if I now apply nice natural vibrations to this area of the sewage treatment plant, then this nitrate can no longer exist well in this environment. It tends to degrade all the faster because it doesn't fit into this vibrational structure I apply to it.
If the frequency of nitrate is added to the oscillation pattern of water, the harmonic structure is destroyed, a phenomenon. In order to precipitate the nitrate, oxygen is normally blown into the aeration tanks in the sewage treatment plants, as in the Mariazell sewage treatment plant in Styria. Large treatment pipes from Thut have now been installed here. The permanently injected frequency of oxygen should now precipitate the nitrate. We will only know whether this works after months of control measurements. Meanwhile, the next experiments are already on their way in Thut's laboratory. They are looking at the settling behavior of sewage sludge after it has been stimulated by electromagnetic vibrations. First, Thut and his team have to find the right frequencies. Sewage sludge from industry behaves differently to that from households. The initial results are promising. The curves show a significantly faster settling of the sludge. However, nobody can say at the moment whether such phenomena will also occur in large sedimentation tanks. Can wastewater be cleaned with sound? A brass sextet plays the Lang-Wang yodel at the edge of this artificial pond. Is water sound therapy the idea of esoteric weirdos? Ottmar Grober and Walter Thut are certainly not. They are professionals who have had to prove themselves in their day-to-day work for years, but they are visionaries who have the courage to treat water differently from the usual practice. Here they let a band play music in front of witnesses because a phenomenon emerges. As the old folk tune plays, the electromagnetic oscillation pattern in the pond changes and now resembles that of the water below the pendulum ramp. an indication that the music is revitalizing the water. Hydrotherapy has two meanings today. Why shouldn't sounds that have a beneficial effect on people also have a stimulating effect on water? And why shouldn't water, which dissolves all substances, also dissolve music? In view of global water problems, it is time not only to discover the phenomena of water, but also to use them.